The message arrived on a Tuesday morning, transmitted across every communication channel Earth possessed. Commander Park Ji-ho was drinking his third cup of coffee when the emergency alert screamed through his office speakers. He set down his mug slowly, watching the holographic display flicker to life above his desk. 12 different alien faces appeared on the screen. Each one represented a different species from across the galaxy. Their appearances varied wildly. Some had scales. Others had multiple eyes, and a few looked almost human except for their strange colored skin. But they all shared one thing in common. They looked angry. The creature in the center spoke first. Its voice was deep and mechanical, translated by computers into perfect Korean. "People of Earth," it said, "we are the Galactic Council. We represent the civilized worlds of this galaxy." Park Ji-ho leaned back in his chair. His lips curved into a small smile. He had been waiting for this call for 20 years. "Your species has expanded beyond your home system," the alien continued. "You have built colonies on 12 worlds without asking permission. You have developed weapons that threaten the peace of the galaxy. You refuse to follow our laws or join our council as junior members." The other aliens nodded their agreement. One of them, a creature with bright blue skin and 4 arms, stepped forward. "Therefore, we give you 30 standard galactic cycles to surrender. Remove all humans from the colonies. Destroy all weapons. Submit to our authority." Park Ji-ho's smile grew wider. He reached for his communication device but did not turn it on yet. "If you refuse," the first alien said, "we will destroy your entire species. We have done this before to races that threatened galactic peace. We will do it again." The transmission ended. The office fell silent except for the humming of computers and the distant sound of traffic outside. Park Ji-ho sat quietly for a moment, still smiling. Then he pressed a button on his desk. "Dr. Lee Minji to my office, please," he said into his communicator, "and get me Captain Kim Tae-yang. Tell them it's time." Within minutes, both officers arrived. Dr. Lee Minji was a small woman with sharp eyes and gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. She had spent the last 15 years studying every piece of alien technology Earth could get its hands on. Captain Kim Tae-yang was younger, tall and lean, with the quick movements of someone who spent most of his time in space. "They finally did it," Park Ji-ho said, gesturing to the communication display. "The Galactic Council just declared war on Earth." Dr. Lee nodded slowly. "How long did they give us?" 30 cycles. About 6 weeks in Earth time." Captain Kim laughed. 6 weeks? They think we need 6 weeks to get scared?" Park Ji-ho stood up and walked to the large window that looked out over the city. Below, millions of people went about their daily lives, unaware that aliens had just threatened to destroy their entire world. But these people had been preparing for this moment without knowing it. Every human alive had been preparing. "What was their reason?" Dr. Lee asked. "The usual," Park Ji-ho replied. "We're too dangerous. We expand too fast. We don't follow their rules." He turned back to face them. "They're right, of course. We are dangerous." Dr. Lee opened her tablet and began typing. "I'll need to contact all research facilities. Project Mirror will need to go active within the hour." "And the hidden colonies?" Captain Kim asked. "All of them," Park Ji-ho confirmed. "It's time they learned what humanity has really been doing for the last 20 years. The truth was that Earth had been expecting this war since the day humans first met aliens. 20 years ago, when the first alien ship had landed in Seoul, the world had celebrated. Finally, humanity was not alone in the universe. They had neighbors among the stars. But the celebration had not lasted long. The aliens had been polite but firm. Humans could exist, but only on Earth. They could have technology, but only what the aliens approved. They could explore space, but only where the aliens allowed. The Galactic Council had made it clear that humans were welcome to join the galaxy as long as they stayed quiet, stayed small, and stayed weak. Humanity had smiled and nodded and agreed to everything. Then they had gone to work. While the aliens thought humans were busy learning to follow galactic law, human scientists had been studying alien technology. While the aliens believed Earth was content with its small corner of space, human ships had been exploring systems the aliens didn't even know existed. While the Galactic Council assumed humans were too primitive to be a real threat, human engineers had been building weapons that worked on principles the aliens had never discovered. How long until we can respond to their message? Park Ji-ho asked. Captain Kim checked his watch. The communication relay will be ready in 30 minutes. Should I prepare the standard diplomatic response? Park Ji-ho's smile returned, wider than before. No. Send them our real response. Dr. Lee looked up from her tablet. Sir, are you sure? Once we send that message, there's no going back. There was never any going back, Park Ji-ho replied. The moment. They decided we were too dangerous to be free. This war became inevitable. The only question was when it would start. He walked back to his desk and activated his personal communication system. With a few keystrokes, he connected to a secure network that reached across not just Earth, but to every hidden human colony in the galaxy. This is Commander Park Ji-ho, he said into the microphone. Protocol Hayabusa is now active. Repeat, Protocol Hayabusa is now active. All units proceed to assigned positions. Across the galaxy, humans who had been waiting for this moment began to move. On hidden bases built inside asteroids, weapons that had been sleeping for years came online. In research facilities buried deep beneath the surface of distant worlds, scientists began preparing technologies that would shock the galaxy. On ships disguised as simple cargo haulers, elite pilots checked their weapons and smiled. Response. Ready, sir, Captain Kim reported. Park Ji-ho nodded. Send it! The message that Earth transmitted back to the Galactic Council was simple. It contained no threats, no demands, no begging for mercy. It was only 7 words long. We accept your declaration. See you soon. When the aliens received the message, they were confused. Where were the desperate pleas for peace? Where were the promises to obey galactic law? Where was the fear? They had expected Earth to surrender immediately, or at least try to negotiate. Instead, the humans had accepted the declaration of war as if they had been waiting for it their entire lives. On Earth, Park Ji-ho turned to his officers. Gentlemen, Dr. Lee, we have 6 weeks to show the galaxy what humans are really capable of. I suggest we don't waste them. Dr. Lee closed her tablet and stood up. The research teams are already moving to combat positions. Project Mirror will be fully operational within 12 hours. Captain Kim saluted. The fleet is ready, sir. All pilots have been briefed. We're just waiting for your orders. Park Ji-ho looked out the window again. Soon, this peaceful scene would change. Soon, the aliens would come to destroy Earth and everything on it. But they would find something they had never encountered before in all their centuries of galactic conquest. They would find a species that had been preparing for this war since the day they looked up at the stars and dreamed of reaching them. The galaxy had declared war on Earth. Earth had been waiting for them to do exactly that. Now it was time to show them why. Admiral Veltar of the Nexari fleet had conquered 17 worlds in his long career. Each time, the pattern had been the same. The primitive species would see his massive ships approaching and immediately surrender. Those who didn't surrender would fight bravely but uselessly against technology that was thousands of years more advanced than their own. The approach to Earth's solar system should have been no different. Sensors detect the third planet, reported his navigation officer. Population approximately 8 billion, technology level. Curious. Curious how? Admiral Veltar asked from his command throne. The bridge of his flagship was enormous, designed to show the power and majesty of the Nexari Empire. Dozens of officers worked at stations arranged in perfect rows, all of them trained from birth for space warfare. They have basic space travel. Sir, some orbital platforms, but their energy signatures are strange. Our computers cannot identify their power sources. Admiral Veltar was not worried. Every species developed technology differently. The humans probably used some primitive fusion system that his sensors had never encountered before. It didn't matter. Nothing they had could threaten his fleet. Behind him stretched the greatest armada the galaxy had ever assembled. 500 ships from 12 different species, each one carrying enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The humans had never seen anything like it. They would surrender the moment his fleet appeared on their sensors. "Sir," called the communications. "Officer, we're receiving a transmission from the human homeworld." "Put it through," Admiral Veltar ordered. He expected to hear begging and pleading. Instead, a calm human voice spoke in perfect Nexari language. "Welcome to the Sol system, Admiral Veltar. This is General Han Su-young of Earth Defense Command. We've been expecting you." Admiral Veltar leaned forward. How did they know his name? How did they know he was coming? More importantly, how did they speak Nexari? His species had never shared their language with humans. "Human," he said, "you will surrender immediately. Power down all weapons and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will result in the complete destruction of your world." There was a pause. Then the human general laughed. It was not the desperate laughter of fear. It was the laughter of someone who had just heard a good joke. "Admiral," General Han said, "I think you misunderstand the situation. We didn't invite you here to surrender. We invited you here to learn." "Learn what?" Admiral Veltar demanded. "Learn why the galaxy should have left Earth alone." The transmission ended. Admiral Veltar stared at the communication panel in confusion. In all his years of conquest, no primitive species had ever spoken to him like that. They were either terrified or foolishly brave. This human had sounded confident. "Scan the system," he ordered. "Find their ships, find their weapons, find everything." His officers worked quickly, their instruments sweeping across the solar system. The scans showed exactly what Admiral Veltar had expected. A few small orbital stations around Earth, some mining operations in the asteroid belt, basic defense platforms that could barely threaten a cargo ship, much less a military vessel. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we detect no significant military presence. Their largest ships appear to be industrial vessels. No sign of advanced weapons." Admiral Veltar relaxed. The human general had been bluffing, trying to sound brave before the inevitable surrender. It was almost admirable in a pathetic way. "Begin the attack," he ordered. "Destroy their orbital platforms first. Show them what real power looks like." The Nexari fleet moved into attack formation. Their weapons began to charge, energy readings climbing to levels that could crack a planet's crust. This would be over quickly. Then something impossible happened. The human ships vanished. "Tactical," Admiral Veltar roared. "Where did they go?" His officers stared at their instruments in confusion. One moment, the human vessels had been clearly visible on every scanner. The next moment, they had simply disappeared. Not destroyed, not moving away, just gone. "Sir, I don't understand," the tactical officer said. "They were there, and now they're not. All scans show empty space. Ships don't just vanish." Admiral Veltar stood up from his throne. "Find them." Before his officers could respond, something struck his flagship from the side. The entire ship shook, and alarms began screaming across the bridge. Emergency lights flashed red as damage reports flooded in. "Port shields down 60%, someone shouted. "Hull breach on deck 7. "What hit us?" Admiral Veltar demanded. "Unknown." "Sir, sensors detect no enemy ships in range." Another impact rocked the flagship. Then another. All around the fleet, explosions bloomed as invisible weapons found their targets. Ships that had conquered worlds were being torn apart by enemies they couldn't see. In the asteroid belt, engineer Choi Young-soo watched the battle from his hidden command center. The base had been built inside a large asteroid, completely invisible to alien sensors. Around him, dozens of human technicians monitored the fight. Ghost Squadron is performing perfectly, reported one of his assistants. The new stealth systems are working exactly as designed. Engineer Choi nodded with satisfaction. For 15 years he had worked on this project. While the aliens had developed bigger ships and stronger weapons, humans had taken a different path. They had learned to become invisible. The technology was based on principles the galaxy had never explored. Instead of hiding from sensors, human ships bent space around themselves, becoming impossible to detect or target. To alien instruments, they simply didn't exist. "How many enemy ships are down?" Choi asked. 17 confirmed destroyed, sir. 34 damaged, and they still have no idea where we are. On the Nexari flagship, Admiral Veltar was learning what it felt like to fight an enemy he couldn't see. His massive fleet, designed to inspire fear and awe, was being picked apart piece by ghosts. "Deploy all fighters," he ordered. "Spread them across the system. Find those ships." Hundreds of small alien fighters launched from the fleet carriers, spreading out in search patterns. They flew in perfect formations, their pilots trained in tactics that had worked for centuries. That was when they met pilot Kang Hyun-woo and his squadron. Kang Hyun-woo had been flying in space since he was 16 years old. Unlike alien pilots, who learned to fight according to strict rules and formations, he had learned to fly like humans had always flown, with creativity, instinct, and absolutely no respect for what was supposed to be impossible. His ship was smaller than the alien fighters, built for speed and maneuverability rather than heavy armor. It appeared on the aliens' sensors for just a moment, long enough for them to target it, then vanished again. The alien fighters moved to intercept, following the tactical manual that had served them well in hundreds of battles. They formed up in attack formation, locked onto the human ship's last known position, and fired. They hit empty space. Kang Hyun-woo had already moved, appearing behind them with weapons blazing. His guns didn't fire energy bolts or plasma charges like alien weapons. Instead, they fired small projectiles that moved faster than anything the aliens had ever seen. The projectiles punched through alien armor like it was paper, destroying 3 fighters before the aliens even realized they were under attack. "Break. Formation," the alien squadron leader ordered. "Evasive maneuvers." But Kang Hyun-woo wasn't following their rules. While the aliens tried to regroup and respond according to their training, he danced between them like a ghost, appearing and disappearing, striking and vanishing. His ship moved in ways that should have been impossible, making turns that would have crushed any alien pilot. Within minutes, the entire alien squadron was destroyed. Kang Hyun-woo's ship reappeared one last time, just long enough to send a message. "To the alien fleet. That was fun," he said in perfect galactic standard. "Send more." Then he vanished again, leaving the aliens staring at empty space and wondering what kind of creatures they had chosen to fight. Back on his flagship, Admiral Veltar watched his forces being systematically destroyed by an enemy he couldn't see, couldn't predict, and couldn't understand. These weren't the primitive humans he had expected. These were something else entirely. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "we're receiving a message from the Galactic Council. They want a status report." Admiral Veltar looked at the tactical display. In less than an hour, he had lost nearly a third of his fleet to an enemy that seemed to be playing with them. His ships, designed to inspire fear across the galaxy, were being outfought by vessels that shouldn't have been able to threaten a cargo hauler. "Tell the Council," he said slowly, "that we may have made an error. Request immediate reinforcements." "How many ships, sir?" Admiral Veltar watched another of. His destroyers explode on the screen, torn apart by weapons that had struck from nowhere. "All of them," he said. "Send all of them." In the asteroid belt, Engineer Choi smiled as he listened to the alien transmission. They were calling for help. That meant the first phase of the plan was working perfectly. Now the galaxy would learn what humanity had really been building in the dark between the stars. And they were going to be very, very surprised. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called at the request of Admiral Veltar. What was supposed to be a simple report on the destruction of Earth had become something much more serious. The 12 species that ruled the galaxy gathered on their neutral station, their faces showing confusion and growing worry. "Explain to us again," said Council Leader Zeph High, her silver skin reflecting the lights of the council chamber. "How you lost half your fleet to a primitive world." Admiral Veltar stood in the center of the room, his once proud uniform now wrinkled and stained. "Council Leader, the humans are not what we believed them to be. Their technology is unlike anything in our databases." "Technology?" scoffed Representative Korth of the Batarian Empire. "What technology could they possibly have? We've monitored their development for 20 years. They barely have working fusion reactors." "That's what they wanted us to think," Admiral Veltar replied. "Their ships appear and disappear at will. Their weapons ignore our shields. Their pilots fight like they have no regard for physics or tactical doctrine." On Earth, Dr. Nam Hyerim watched the alien council meeting through intercepted communications. The small Korean woman sat in a laboratory buried 3 kilometers beneath the surface of the Korean peninsula. Around her, machines hummed quietly, as they processed data that would have been impossible for alien computers to understand. "They still don't get it," she said to her assistant. "They think we just have better toys." Dr. Nam had spent her entire career studying the one thing that made humans different from every other species in the galaxy: their complete refusal to accept limitations. While other races developed technology to enhance their natural abilities, humans developed technology to overcome their natural weaknesses. The result was something the galaxy had never seen before. "Dr. Nam," her assistant called out, "we're receiving a priority message from Admiral Yu Jae-sung. The second phase is ready to begin." Dr. Nam nodded. "Tell the Admiral that Project Evolution is green for activation." Across the galaxy, something was stirring. In hidden bases that the aliens had never detected, human soldiers were waking up from long hibernation cycles. These weren't the same humans that the galaxy had met 20 years ago. These were something new. Sergeant Moon Do-hyun opened his eyes and felt the familiar rush of enhanced systems coming online throughout his body. His vision immediately sharpened beyond human normal. His hearing picked up sounds from across the facility, and his mind began processing information at speeds that would have made alien computers jealous. He sat up on the hibernation platform and flexed his hands. Beneath his skin, microscopic machines worked to repair any damage from the long sleep and optimize his performance for combat. His bones were laced with materials stronger than alien armor. His muscles had been enhanced to give him strength that no natural human could possess. His nervous system had been upgraded to give him reaction times measured in microseconds. But the physical improvements were nothing compared to what had been done to his mind. "Sergeant Moon," called Lieutenant Park Hana as she approached his platform. "How are you feeling?" "Perfect," he replied, and meant it. The neural enhancements didn't just make him smarter, they made him capable of thinking in ways that confused even other humans. He could process multiple combat scenarios simultaneously, predict enemy movements before they happened, and adapt to new threats in real time. "Mission briefing in 30 minutes. Lieutenant Park said. "The aliens are sending reinforcements to Earth. Time to show them what we've been working on." Sergeant Moon smiled. He had been looking forward to this moment for years. Back at the Galactic Council station, the emergency session was growing more heated. Reports were coming in from across the galaxy, and none of them made sense. "The humans are attacking our supply lines," reported General Vexillar of the Centauri Federation. But our ships report no enemy contacts. Our convoys are being destroyed by invisible attackers. Impossible, declared Admiral Thane of the Rigel Commonwealth. No stealth technology can work against our combined sensor networks. Tell that to the crews who are dying, General Vexillar shot back. Representative Korth stood up, his massive frame intimidating even in the council chamber. Enough of this panic, so the humans have some new tricks. We'll adapt. We always adapt. Will we? Asked a quiet voice from the corner of the chamber. Everyone turned to look at Scholar Quinda, the eldest member of the council and representative of the Ancient Preservation Order. She rarely spoke during meetings, preferring to observe and record history as it happened. "What do you mean, Scholar?" asked Council Leader Zeph High. "I've been studying the human attacks," Scholar Quinda said, activating a holographic display. "Look at the patterns. Look at the targets they choose. Look at how they fight." The display showed a star map with red dots marking every human attack over the past week. At first glance, it looked random, but as Scholar Quinda highlighted different sections, a pattern began to emerge. "They're not just attacking our ships," she continued. "They're studying us. Every engagement provides them with data about our tactics, our technology, our weaknesses. They're learning faster than we can adapt." "Learning what?" Admiral Veltar asked. "How to defeat us," Scholar Quinda replied simply. "Watch this tactical analysis of their latest attacks." The hologram shifted to show recorded battle footage. The council members watched in growing horror as human ships demonstrated impossible maneuvers, weapons that shouldn't have worked, and tactics that defied everything they knew about space combat. "They don't fight like any species we've encountered," Scholar Quinda explained. "We fight to prove our strength, to show our honor, to follow our traditions. They fight to win, regardless of what that requires." On the screen, a small human ship was being pursued by 3 alien cruisers. Instead of running or fighting back, it flew directly into an asteroid field. The alien ships followed, confident in their superior firepower. The human ship led them, deeper into the asteroids, weaving between rocks that would have crushed any other vessel. Then suddenly, it vanished. The alien ships found themselves alone in a maze of spinning rocks, unable to maneuver, unable to retreat. That was when the asteroids exploded. The humans had mined the entire field while the aliens weren't looking, turning it into a massive trap. The 3 cruisers were destroyed instantly, and the human ship reappeared to broadcast a simple message. "Next time, don't follow us home." "They turn everything into a weapon," Scholar Quinda said quietly. "Their ships, their environment, even their apparent weaknesses. They make us think we're winning, then use our confidence against us." Representative Korth's face had gone pale. "How many ships have we lost to tactics like this?" "Too many," Admiral Veltar admitted. "And it's getting worse. Every day, they seem to know more about us while we learn nothing about them." Council Leader Zeph High stood up. "Then we escalate. We bring the full might of the galaxy to bear against their homeworld. We end this before they can—" She was interrupted by an urgent communication from her home system. A young Zephyrian officer appeared on the screen, his face tight with fear. "Council Leader," he said, "you need to return immediately. The humans, they're here. They're in our home system." "Impossible," Council Leader Zeph High said. "Our home system is 50,000 light-years from Earth. Even with the fastest ships, it would take them months to reach us." "They're not using ships," the officer replied. "They're just appearing. Our defense platforms are going offline one by one. We can't find them, we can't fight them, and we can't stop them." The transmission cut to static. Around the council chamber, similar reports began coming in. Human forces were attacking homeworlds across the galaxy simultaneously, not with massive fleets or overwhelming firepower, but with small groups that seemed to appear from nowhere, strike at precisely the right targets, and vanish before any response could be organized. Admiral Yu Jae-sung stood on the bridge of humanity's first true warship, hidden in the space between galaxies. The vessel had been built in secret over the past 15 years, using technology that combined the best of human innovation with carefully studied alien science. "Status report," he ordered. "All strike teams are in position," reported his tactical officer. "Phase 3 is proceeding according to schedule. The aliens are beginning to understand that this isn't a conventional war." Admiral Yu nodded. The plan had always been simple in concept, even if it was incredibly complex in execution. While the aliens expected humans to fight like every other species in the galaxy, humanity had chosen a different path. They had decided to fight like humans. "Signal all teams," Admiral Yu ordered. "Begin Phase 4. It's time to show the galaxy what happens when you threaten Earth." Across the galaxy, the real war was about to begin, and the aliens were going to learn that declaring war on humanity had been the biggest mistake in galactic history. But first, they were going to learn something. Even more important, when humans smiled and said, "See you soon," it wasn't a threat. It was a promise. Captain Shin Woo-jin stood on the bridge of the newly revealed human dreadnought Soul's Pride as it dropped out of hyperspace above the Nexari homeworld. The massive ship had been built in the shadow of Jupiter's moons, invisible to alien sensors, for over a decade. Now it hung in space like a dark metal mountain, bristling with weapons that the galaxy had never seen before. "Captain," reported tech specialist Baek Ji-won from her station, "we're detecting massive orbital defense platforms, at least 200 automated weapon systems, plus their home fleet of 80 ships." Captain Shin smiled grimly. 3 months ago, these numbers would have meant certain death for any attacking force. Today, they were just another problem to solve. "Any response from the planet?" he asked. "They're demanding identification and ordering us to surrender immediately," Baek Ji-won replied. "Standard Nexari protocol. They seem very confident." "They won't be for long," Captain Shin said. "Signal the fleet. Begin Operation Homecoming." Across the Nexari system, space began to shimmer as more human ships dropped their stealth fields. But these weren't the small, agile fighters that had harassed alien forces for months. These were full-sized warships, built with technology that combined human innovation with everything they had learned from studying their enemies. The aliens had spent centuries perfecting their combat doctrine. They built massive ships with heavy armor and overwhelming firepower. They fought in formations that had proven successful against dozens of other species. They followed tactical manuals that had been written by the greatest military minds in galactic history. Humanity had read those manuals, studied those formations, and designed their entire strategy around making them useless. "Nexari fleet is moving to intercept," reported the tactical officer. "They're following standard defensive pattern 7. "Of course they are," Captain Shin said. "Baek Ji-won, are our systems ready?" "Integration complete, Captain. We now have full access to their communication networks, navigation systems, and targeting computers." This was humanity's greatest advantage, and the aliens still didn't understand it. While other species built technology to be powerful and reliable, humans built technology to be adaptable and connected. Every piece of alien equipment that humans had studied over the past 20 years had been reverse-engineered, understood, and improved upon. More importantly, humans had learned how to talk to alien machines. "Begin network infiltration," Captain Shin ordered. Across the Nexari fleet, computer systems that had worked perfectly for centuries suddenly began receiving new instructions. Navigation computers started reporting false positions. Targeting systems began identifying friendly ships as enemies. Communication arrays started broadcasting human music instead of tactical updates. Admiral Veltar, commanding the defense from his flagship, watched in horror as his fleet began to fall apart around him. Ships collided with each other as their navigation systems failed. Weapons fired at random targets as their computers received corrupted data. His entire command structure dissolved into chaos as his officers found themselves unable to communicate with each other. "What's happening?" he demanded of his technical staff. "Sir, all our systems are compromised," reported his chief engineer. "Something is rewriting our computer codes in real time. Every time we try to fix one system, 3 others fail." "How is that possible?" "Unknown, sir. The intrusion methods are unlike anything in our databases." On the human dreadnought, Baek Ji-won watched her screens with satisfaction. The alien computers were sophisticated but predictable. They had been designed by minds that thought in straight lines, following logical pathways that were easy for human programmers to anticipate and exploit. "Their orbital platforms are offline," she reported. "Defense fleet is in complete disarray. Should we proceed with Phase 2? Captain Shin looked at the chaos surrounding the alien homeworld. Ships drifted helplessly as their crews tried to regain control of their own technology. Orbital platforms that had defended this world for 1,000 years now hung silent and dark in space. "No," he said quietly. "Send them a message." The communication that reached Admiral Veltar's ship was transmitted on frequencies that should have been impossible for humans to access. It bypassed every security protocol and appeared directly on his personal command screen. "Admiral Veltar," said Captain Shin's voice. "This is Captain Shin Woo-jin of the Human Defense Force. Your fleet is disabled. Your planet's defenses are offline. Your homeworld is completely defenseless." Admiral Veltar stared at the screen, waiting for the demands, the threats, the terms of surrender that always followed such a demonstration of power. Instead, he heard something that confused him more than anything else that had happened in this impossible war. "We're not going to attack your planet," Captain Shin continued. "We're not going to bombard your cities or demand your surrender. We're going to do something else." "What?" Admiral Veltar whispered. "We're going to give you a choice." Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out on dozens of worlds. Human fleets had appeared seemingly from nowhere, demonstrating capabilities that left alien defenses helpless. But instead of following up with the expected destruction, they simply waited. On the Zephyrian homeworld, Scout leader Oh Min-seok stood in the main plaza of the capital city, surrounded by thousands of alien civilians. He wore no armor, carried no visible weapons, and had walked through the planet's most secure military zone as if it didn't exist. "People of Zephyr Prime," he said, his voice amplified by systems that tapped directly into the planet's communication network. "My name is Oh Min-seok. I represent the human species." The crowd murmured nervously. These aliens had been told that humans were primitive savages who needed to be destroyed for the good of the galaxy. But the being standing before them spoke their language perfectly and had somehow bypassed every security system on their world. "Your leaders declared war on my people," Oh Min-seok continued. "They said we were too dangerous to be allowed to exist freely. They were right about one thing. We are dangerous. But not in the way they think." He gestured to the sky above, where the shapes of human ships could be seen hanging motionless in the atmosphere. "We could have destroyed your world. We could have bombarded your cities, enslaved your people, or simply made you disappear. That's what your leaders would have done to us. But we're not your leaders." The crowd listened in growing amazement as Oh Min-seok explained humanity's real purpose. The war had never been about conquest or revenge. It had been about forcing change. "Your civilization has been stagnant for 1,000 years, he said. "You follow the same rules, use the same technology, think the same thoughts that your ancestors did centuries ago. You've forgotten how to grow, how to change, how to become something better than you were." He paused, looking out over the sea of alien faces. "We're going to remind you." Similar conversations were taking place on worlds across the galaxy. Human representatives appeared in capital cities, military bases, and government centers, always alone, always unarmed, and always carrying the same message. change or die. Not because humans would destroy them, but because a civilization that couldn't adapt would eventually destroy itself. Back on the Nexari homeworld, Admiral Veltar found himself face-to-face with Captain Shin in his own command center. The human had somehow bypassed every security measure and now stood calmly in the most secure room on the planet. "How?" Admiral Veltar asked. "How did we get here?" Captain Shin replied. "The same way we did everything else. We learned. We adapted. We became something new. What do you want?" "We want you to understand," Captain Shin said. "Your species has incredible potential. Your technology is sophisticated. Your culture is rich. Your people are capable of amazing things. But you've been held back by leaders who are afraid of change." Admiral Veltar stared at the human. "You could have killed us all." "Yes," Captain Shin agreed. "But then what would we have learned? What would you have learned? Death teaches nothing except fear." "Then what happens now?" Captain Shin smiled. "Now you have a choice. You can keep following the old ways, the safe ways, the ways that have kept your civilization locked in place for centuries. Or you can try something new. And if we choose the old ways, then you'll discover that the galaxy is a dangerous place, and species that can't adapt don't survive long." Admiral Veltar felt a chill run down his spine. The human wasn't threatening him. He was simply stating a fact. The galaxy was changing, whether the aliens wanted it to or not. They could change with it or be left behind. "What kind of change are you talking about?" he asked. Captain Shin's smile grew wider. "The kind that turns enemies into allies. The kind that makes the impossible become routine. The kind that takes a galaxy full of separate, competing species and turns them into something greater. A human empire? No," Captain Shin said. "Something better. A partnership. A collaboration. A chance for every species to become more than they ever imagined possible." Admiral Veltar looked around his command center, thinking about everything that had happened. His fleet had been defeated without a single human weapon being fired in. Anger. His homeworld had been captured without a single building being damaged. 6 months after the war ended, President Jung Yunbi stood before the reformed Galactic Council in a chamber that had been redesigned to accommodate new ways of thinking. Gone were the rigid hierarchies and formal protocols that had defined galactic politics for centuries. In their place was something that would have been impossible before humanity arrived, a genuine collaboration between species. "The integration protocols are working better than we expected," reported scientist Ryu Sungmin, as he presented his latest data to the assembled representatives. 12 species have already begun implementing human technological improvements. The Nexari have increased their industrial efficiency by 300%. The Zephyrians have developed new art forms that we never imagined possible. Around the chamber, alien faces showed expressions that had become common since the war ended: wonder, excitement, and hope. These were emotions that had been rare in galactic politics for centuries. President Jung smiled as she listened to the reports. The transformation had been remarkable to witness. Species that had been locked in the same patterns of thought for millennia were suddenly discovering new possibilities, new ways of seeing the universe, new dreams to pursue. "What about the resistance movements?" asked Admiral Yu Jae-sung, who now served as humanity's military liaison to the Council. "Minimal and declining," reported Ambassador Song Hae-jin. "Most of the opposition has come from old guard leaders who were invested in the previous system. As the benefits of collaboration become more obvious, even they are beginning to change their minds." The truth was that the galaxy had needed this change desperately, even if they hadn't realized it. For too long, the various species had been content to follow the same safe paths, use the same proven technologies, and avoid anything that might disrupt their comfortable routines. Humanity had forced them to remember what it felt like to grow. The Batarian Empire has requested assistance. "With their energy crisis," continued Ambassador Song, Their old power systems are becoming insufficient for their expanding population. They want to learn about human fusion technology. Approved, President Jung said immediately. Send a technical team to their homeworld. Full knowledge transfer. No restrictions. This was humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy, the willingness to share everything they had learned. While other species had always guarded their technological advantages jealously, humans had opened their entire scientific database to anyone who wanted to learn. The results had been extraordinary. "Ma'am," interrupted Communications Officer Lee. "GU, we're receiving a priority transmission from the Outer Rim. It's marked as urgent." President Jung nodded. "Put it through." The holographic display activated, showing the face of Captain Park Sun-woo, commander of one of humanity's deep-eye space exploration vessels. His expression was serious, but there was also excitement in his eyes. "Madam President," he said, "we've made contact with something new, something big." The chamber fell silent. Since the end of the war, human ships had been exploring regions of space that the galaxy had never mapped. They had discovered dozens of new worlds, several new species, and technologies that expanded everyone's understanding of what was possible. But Captain Park's tone suggested this was something different. "Report, Captain," President Jung ordered. "We've found evidence of another galaxy-spanning civilization," Captain Park said. "But this one is old, very old, and they're not friendly." The hologram shifted to show long-range sensor data. The depths of space. Something vast was moving toward their galaxy. Ships that dwarfed anything humans or aliens had ever built, following trajectories that would bring them into contact with inhabited systems within a few years. Initial analysis suggests their technology is significantly more advanced than anything we've encountered, Captain Park continued. But there's something else. They're not exploring or colonizing. They're harvesting. Admiral Yu leaned forward. "Harvesting what?" "Everything," Captain Park replied grimly. "Our long-range scans show the remains of dozens of star systems in their wake. Planets stripped down to their cores, stars drained of energy, entire civilizations simply gone." A chill ran through the chamber. The alien representatives looked at each other with growing fear. This was exactly the kind of threat that their old, rigid civilizations would have been helpless against. "How long until they reach our space?" President Jung asked. 3 years, maybe 4, Captain Park replied. "They're moving slowly, but they're thorough. Every system they enter is completely consumed." President Jung stood up, her mind already working on the problem. This was why humanity had forced the galaxy to change, why they had pushed everyone to think beyond their old limitations, not for conquest or control, but for survival. "Thank you, Captain," she said. "Return to base immediately. We have work to do." The transmission ended, leaving the chamber in heavy silence. Finally, former Admiral Veltar, now serving as the Nexari representative to the Council, spoke up. "Our old fleets would have been useless against something like that," he said quietly. "Our old ways of thinking, our old technologies, we would have been harvested like grain." "Yes," President Jung agreed. "But you're not using your old ways anymore, are you?" Admiral Veltar looked around the chamber, seeing species that had been enemies just months ago now working together on projects that none of them could have imagined alone. The Zephyrians had combined their artistic sensibilities with human engineering to create ships that were as beautiful as they were functional. The Centauri had merged their mathematical precision with human adaptability to develop new forms of faster-than-light travel. Every species in the galaxy had become something more than they had been before. "No," he said with growing confidence. "We're not." "Then we have a chance," President Jung said. "The old galaxy would have died facing this threat. But we're not the old galaxy anymore." Scientist Ryu stepped forward. "I'll begin organizing the research teams immediately. If we're going to face technology that advanced, we'll need to push our own development beyond anything we've achieved so far." I'll coordinate with all species military commands, Admiral Yu added. We'll need to integrate our forces completely. No holding back, no national secrets, no species-specific advantages kept in reserve. Ambassador Song nodded. And I'll establish communication protocols with every world in the galaxy. If we're going to survive this, everyone needs to know what's coming and what they can do to help. President Jung looked around the chamber, seeing the determination in every face. These beings had learned something that their species had forgotten centuries ago. When faced with impossible odds, the answer wasn't to hide behind old traditions or proven methods. The answer was to become something new. The Harvest Fleet thinks, "They're coming to collect another helpless galaxy," she said. "They've probably done this 1,000 times before, always finding the same thing. Civilizations that are too set in their ways to adapt, too divided to unite, too afraid to change." She paused, looking out at the stars beyond the station's viewports. "They're about to discover that this galaxy is different. We're not going to hide behind our old defenses or flee to distant stars. We're going to do what humans have always done when someone threatens everything we care about." "What's that?" asked Council Leader Zephahai. President Jung smiled, and it was the same smile that Commander Park Ji-ho had worn when the aliens first declared war on Earth. It was the smile of a species that had been waiting for exactly this challenge, preparing for exactly this moment. "We're going to smile," she said, "and show them why that was a mistake." Around the chamber, alien faces began to reflect that same expression. The galaxy had learned more than just human technology and tactics. They had learned to think like humans, to face the impossible with confidence instead of fear. 3 years later, when the Harvest Fleet arrived at the edge of galactic space, they found something they had never encountered before in their long history of conquest and consumption. They found a galaxy that was ready for them. The first harvest ship to enter inhabited space disappeared without a trace. Then the second, then the third. By the time the Harvest Fleet realized that their prey had become predators, it was too late. The galaxy had learned to hunt. Years afterward, when historians tried to pinpoint the moment when everything changed, they always came back to the same event. The day the Galactic Council declared war on Earth, and Earth smiled like it had been waiting. Because in a way, it had been. Humanity had always known that the universe was vast and dangerous, full of threats, that could destroy entire civilizations. They had spent their entire existence preparing for the day when they would need to be more than just another species trying to survive. They had prepared to be the species that helped everyone else become more than they ever thought possible. And when the galaxy finally learned to smile the way humans did, with confidence, determination, and absolute certainty that impossible only meant not done yet, even the deepest darkness between the stars began to seem a little less frightening. The day harvest was over. The galaxy had learned to grow,